wonderful good morning to London, to Berlin, and obviously also to everybody who's watching us around the world for this wonderful occasion. As you are aware, this year is the 20th anniversary of the twinning of London and Berlin. And we would like to use this wonderful occasion to celebrate, but also to discuss the partnership and the collaboration between the two cities. I may very briefly introduce myself. My name is Julia Bauer. I'm a German national TV and event presenter, and I'll be guiding you through the opening remarks of the two mayors of the city. So a very wonderful good morning and welcome to the governing mayor of Berlin, Michael Müller, and to the mayor of London, Sadiq. Good to have you here. We will have a Q&A session together, followed by the continuing program. But before we go into our questions, I would like to pass the ball on to the mayor of Berlin, Mr. Müller, to give your opening remarks.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for the warm welcome and hello once again to Sadiq. I'm delighted that we have the chance to meet at least virtually today and discuss the current situation. Sadiq, I think we both had a different idea about how our city partnership anniversary would look like. We had so wonderful meetings and discussion both in Berlin and London. I like to think back on them, but at least we had the chance to exchange virtually over the past few months. COVID has made this, left this the only opportunity for us. I'm more than happy we have such a good partnership, not only between our two cities, but also personally, because I think that friendship and partnerships are borne out by people, not just by the two of us, by mayors, but many, many different active stakeholders, both in London and Berlin, who are working daily on cultural exchange, on youth exchanges, cooperation between cultural and other institutions, sports, research, science and academia, very active people who put their hearts into their work. But not only their work, but only they represent our partnership, the partnership between our two cities. And I think this is a very good sign in these trying times, because on the one hand, we are fighting the pandemic. The people in our two cities are suffering badly, and we're trying our very best to help everyone and do the best we can. And at the same time, we're facing another challenge, which is Brexit. We are all wondering what the future relationship between our two countries and cities look like. And I can feel, maybe especially in these times, a certain positive attitude saying now more than ever. We will continue to work together, not just promote and foster our partnership, but even further develop it and augment it. If things get tough at the national level, it is all the more important that we work together at the municipal and local level, where we can meet directly, where people meet directly. So I'm more than pleased to have the opportunity to celebrate our partnership, at least virtually. And I'm very happy also about these positive developments we're seeing in research with the vaccines that are being approved. And it gives me hope that we can meet again in person next year, shake hands, reach out to each other, invite each other. And I think this is important too. And I think we all long for it. To re-enter a phase of direct exchange. So once again, from Berlin, on behalf of the city, a big thank you for the friendship, for this close bond and active cooperation. We will definitely continue to work together and further develop this friendship in the coming years. Thank you.
Very positive words, Mr. Müller. Thank you very much for the opening remark. And I would like to invite the Mayor of London now to give his opening remarks. Mr. Khan, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Julia, for that introduction. And thank you to Governing Mayor Müller, not only for your remarks, but for your invitation to this event and for your expression of friendship and goodwill towards London. I'm delighted to be able to take part in this video conference today. I'm really sorry it couldn't be in person for obvious reasons, but also to reciprocate the sentiments that Governor Mayor Müller has said when I say that London will always be a close partner and a dear friend of Berlin's. As Governing Mayor Müller mentioned, we come together today to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the signing of the official partnership agreement between our two great cities. Among other commitments, the agreement sets out our common wish to reinforce and further develop the long-standing links we share through a program of mutual cooperation. I'm proud that today we're building on that partnership by pledging to expand business ties and deepen our collaboration to tackle global challenges. And this has never been more important, from the unprecedented health and economic crisis caused by the pandemic to the fallout from Brexit, which I and my city did not want, but also the threats posed by air pollution and the climate emergency. Our cities face a host of challenges that can only be addressed by effectively working together rather than being in isolation. Indeed, as the Mayor of London, I'm a passionate believer in building bridges, not walls, because I know that we achieve far more together than we do alone. And that's why I welcome this opportunity to strengthen the bonds that already exist between London and Berlin. Our relationship is one that is built on shared values and a shared outlook. And so we're ideally placed to meet our shared challenges together. You know, our two great cities already enjoy strong cultural, business, and economic ties. Over the last 6 years, German companies have invested more than £2 billion into London, helping to create more than 5,000 jobs. Over the same period, businesses based in London have invested £2.6 billion in Berlin, creating almost 12,000 jobs. Notwithstanding Brexit, it's vital we continue such trade and maximise future business opportunities in order to create jobs, grow our economies, and deliver a better standard of living for our citizens. As we work to recover from this pandemic, we must seek to build back our cities and economies so they're fairer, greener, and more sustainable than before. And together, I'm confident we can seize this moment to achieve just that. Finally, Julia, I want to say that although Britain is leaving the EU, our cities and our countries will always be bound by the European values of liberty, democracy, and respect for diversity. For that reason, my promise to you is that London will always be a city that is welcoming and open to business and investment from Germany, open to those EU citizens who live, work, and study in our city, and open to our good friends in Berlin.
Those are very, very confident words. Thank you very, very much. And I suggest that we go a little bit deeper into the partnership and also the future of the partnership. My first question for this reason will go to Mr. Müller. What would you say does Brexit really mean for the 20-year-old city partnership between London and Berlin?
I already said it before. These are not easy framework conditions, but they rather have the effect that we say now we are more determined than ever to go forward and intensify our cooperation. Sadiq Khan rightly said and mentioned the big challenges that we both face. Within our networks and our different partnerships, when we come together, we always find that we are facing the same tasks, the same challenges. And we have to find answers to challenges such as population growth in cities, how to deal with climate change, how can we offer better mobility options for people, how can we build and create affordable housing for our citizens. The question of integration and migration. Both Berlin and London thrive on multicultural societies and communities. They are places of longing for people from all over the world. And we have to provide the right framework conditions for this. This doesn't work just by itself, but mayors and politicians have to set the framework and show how communities can thrive peacefully in our cities and countries. And there are big cities around the world looking to Berlin and London, certainly also Paris and others, wondering how do you do it? What answers do you give to your citizens? What are your guidances? How can we learn from you? So in that sense, the exchange between Berlin and London and Paris as well is really crucial for other corporations and networks, city networks. And one prime example for me, not just because of the pandemic that we are currently threatened with, is the topic of science and research. There is no area in daily life, no topic in daily life that we have to respond to that we can do without the expertise of science and research. When it comes to mobility, to climate, to new forms of housing, when it comes to energy generation of the future, all of these are topics, and especially when it comes to health and medicine, where we depend on the expertise of scientists and researchers. And this is exactly where our two cities work perfectly together. There are long-term partnerships between the Humboldt University, for instance, having long-standing partnerships with the King's College London. We won over Oxford as a partner for our University Alliance here in Berlin, and we are learning from another. Scientists are exchanging, and I think this is something great, something valuable, a bedrock for a better partnership and to be able to give better answers to challenges of the future.
Absolutely so. Thank you very much, Mr. Khan. You said before that you are convinced that London will stay global, will stay outward looking also after the Brexit. So may I ask, how will you ensure that? And how would the continuation of the collaboration with cities like Berlin would look like?
Well, can I just follow on what Governor Müller said, Governor Mayor Müller said in relation to the dynamism between our cities and our countries. I'll give you two examples which illustrate my optimism. One is this week in London, for the first time, a vaccine was used in relation to this pandemic. This vaccine was invented by Germans of Turkish origin and manufactured in Belgium. And it's a vaccine we're using in London. I'll give you another reason why I'm optimistic. Although I'm the mayor of London, the football team I support is Liverpool. And we, the team I support, haven't won the Premier League for 30 years. We won it last year, most successful year in 30 years. Our manager was Jurgen Klopp, a German manager who is now loved and revered by Liverpool fans. This demonstrates that although some politicians may, in my view, mess things up, we can be optimistic about our links of people, universities, as Mayor Müller said, our businesses, civic society, culture, sport. The genie is out of the bottle in relation to what we can achieve together. And later on today, you'll be hearing from London and Partners and the Berlin equivalent about the really good business-to-business collaboration taking place. We in London want to make sure that the next generation enjoy the fruits of that close working relationship. Mayor Müller and I are of a generation that have seen the benefits. Our parents' generation were suspicious of one another. And my optimism is that our children and that generation will continue to see their European neighbours as friends, as family, rather than as people they should be suspicious of.
Thank you very much. And I think a major contribution to this is education. And Mr. Müller, you've already talked about the importance of education and agreements in this field before. So may I just ask, would you think that maybe additional cooperation agreements between universities would also be helpful? And what impact do you think will the agreement have in the future on, let's say, the freedom of movement for academics, for researchers, for teachers, students, for apprentices?
Well, beyond agreements, it's important that they are put into practice, that we breathe life into them. We have agreements, cooperative agreements signed over the past 2 or 3 years, for instance, as I said, with Oxford University. And the consequence are tangible measures. We will have a Berlin House in Oxford, a house of the Berlin science community in Oxford, and an Oxford House here in Berlin, where British scientists will be seen in Berlin, and places where people can encounter and exchange directly in person. So a direct step forward that becomes visible in both London and Berlin due to agreements we concluded. I mentioned Humboldt University in Berlin that are already working close with King's College London, and they too have taken the next steps and made agreements on exchanges between scientists and students. And on this occasion, we have to say, of course, there may be problems when, due to Brexit, Erasmus, for instance, the exchange between students will not be as easy as it used to be, because the funds are no longer available, and the EU funds cannot be accessed in the UK as they can be in Germany. And so we shouldn't only take note of these hurdles, but overcome them and try to find different agreements between the countries, or cities, maybe between London and Berlin, to enable this exchange between students, to ensure that they can learn from each other and meet. And I like to go back to something Sadiq Khan said about children and grandchildren, who we want to have a different perspective of these partnerships. I can see this with my children. They no longer think that the EU is an economic community. For them, the EU is a community of values. They want to meet friends in London, in Great Britain. They want this partnership to be a practical one, something that they can live and experience. And they will not be stopped by a Brexit or gaps that cannot be bridged at the highest level. They want tangible opportunities for this partnership, for this friendship. And so it is upon us to talk about agreements and to conclude agreements that make this possible.
So very human values that lead to the fact that hurdles will obviously be overcome. That's great to hear. Mr. Khan, you told us before how both cities, London and Berlin, share quite some strength. You talked about sports. There's also technology. There's arts, the creative sectors. What future opportunities will there be from your point of view for the cities to keep on sharing knowledge, ideas, and talent?
Well, firstly, I think Governing Mayor Müller is right that the universities in London and Berlin will need to be imaginative about overcoming the obstacles, because we want to continue to have students from London and the UK going to Berlin and Germany, and vice versa. You yourself, Julia, benefited from an education in London, the LSE, which I know you enjoyed, and the Erasmus scheme is really important. In fact, Erasmus said, "Fortune favours the audacious." And we need to be audacious going forward. So I'm looking forward to, Julia, in particular our tech companies. Berlin and London are fantastic in relation to tech, AI, fintech, big data, the Internet of Things, creative industries. I'm looking to scale-ups in London, working with scale-ups in Berlin, startups in Berlin, working with startups in London. I'm looking for angel investors in London, supporting businesses in Berlin, and vice versa. And that's the best way for both our cities to be successful, but also to address the prejudices that exist. You know, a remarkable thing, when it came to the referendum in relation to Brexit, Michael won't be surprised, but actually younger people below 40 overwhelmingly voted to remain. And so young people get it in relation to the importance of working together. One of the things we'll be doing, Julia, tangibly, the mayor and myself, is making sure there are more trade missions, making sure we collaborate on events. Because although we may believe in the European Union, we are very much a European city with European values. And it's really important that we reflect that in all the things we do. So not just sports and culture and business, but students as well. You know, life sciences is crucial in relation to progress being made. We've got in London, the Crick Institute, and other really important works taking place. In those laboratories, there are German scientists, French scientists, Belgian scientists, Spanish scientists, Portuguese scientists. And so we need to make sure that those sorts of relationships carry on. Who know, working together, they could find the cure to cancer very soon. And it's really important that we pool our resources and our expertise.
Absolutely so. Thank you very much. Mr. Müller, different topic, and I admit it's quite a lengthy question, but I'm sure that you will find just the right words to answer. What I'm talking about is the fact that on Berlin's initiative, the 4-City Declaration, we, the cosmopolitan cities of Europe, was drafted. What are the cities actually hoping to achieve with this declaration? And what cities do you think should join you? And also, could this be a basis for developing additional strategies to fight, for example, right-wing populism, right-wing propaganda, or even to foster the fight against terrorism?
Yes, there was an initiative launched here in Berlin by the former president of the EU Parliament, Martin Schulz, who now sits in the German Parliament, who really cares about the future development of Europe and how we can act beyond Berlin, London, and Paris, and how we can carry on this great tradition of the European Union and European collaboration. This was the foundation and the motivation for this declaration, to bring together the metropolises of the world. This declaration was designed as a message of these cities, as a commitment to mutual collaboration. And Sadiq Khan and myself, we both already said that this is not only about the economic advantage and economic progress, but also about values. And this is important to our capitals, our respective cities, that enterprises and companies can work freely, that we can attract business. That is important to us as mayors, but the basis has to be right. And especially in our cities with millions of people which feed on immigrants or benefit from immigration, which have a great diversity of religions, faiths, cultural backgrounds, who all live side by side. You need this common foundation of values. And this is why it is the natural step to work together in mutual understanding and to fight against anti-Semitism, racism, and discrimination, because the coexistence of faiths and religions and cultures is a positive value for our coexistence and our life in our cities. So I can just repeat, we have to accept other people's ways of lives. It is something, these people make a contribution to our cities. It is a common ground. We have to find common ground. And this is why I'm glad and delighted to see that London, Paris, Berlin, and other cities have come together, not only joining this declaration, but that we are also looking beyond to find other partners, but major cities around the world who share these values and who commit to this multicultural, peaceful coexistence in our cities. I think this is very important, that we continue sending out these messages.
So the future is going to stay cosmopolitan. That's a very great message. Mr. Khan, you already outlined how exciting it can be to work in London, where you have a very intercultural environment. What is your message to European citizens now who are considering London as a place to work and live following Brexit?
Well, those that are here, my message is simple. Thank you. Thank you for the contribution you make to, in my view, make London the greatest city in the world. We have more than 1 million Londoners who are EU citizens, and I'm really grateful for all that they do in all sectors of life in London. My message to those EU citizens outside of London is London is open and you'll be welcome here. We, as Governing Mayor Müller said, we're a city with the values that are very much European values of respect, tolerance, embracing diversity. And in your question to the governing mayor, you were right to remind us that there's been across the world a rise of nativist populist movements. And I think London and Berlin are the antidote, the antithesis to those sorts of nativist populist movements. The other thing is we know there's greater urbanization. More and more people are moving to cities. And we've got a simple choice. We either believe that there's a clash of civilizations, we believe in protectionism and building walls, or we believe actually we've got far more that unites us, we've got far more in common, we build bridges and we build friendships. And I think both Berlin and London are beacons for that sort of pluralism, that sort of multiculturalism, and that sort of respect. And it's really important that people don't think just because the UK voted to leave the European Union, London is going to stop being open, pluralistic, and the great city that we are. We've been open for 1,000 years to different religions, different ethnicities, different peoples. That's not going to change.
And that's good to hear. I really am looking forward to your answers in regards to the next two questions. I'm going to pass the ball first to Mr. Khan. If you had to sum up Berlin in 1, 2, or maximum 3 words, which ones would you pick?
Joint best city. 3 words. But actually, do you know, I'm going to cheat. One of the greatest Londoners was a singer called David Bowie. And David Bowie spent a lot of time in Berlin. And he said, Berlin is the greatest cultural extravaganza there could be. You can't beat Bowie.
You cannot, and actually you didn't cheat because it's not what you said, you quoted. So I think you're totally fine. Thank you very much. And Mr. Müller, you had a bit of the advantage that you know what's expecting you. If you had to sum up London in 1, 2, maximum 3 words, and choose your own words, what would they be?
Well, I think London is the international metropolis par excellence. It is a city with a great tradition, which has been dynamic from its founding and which continues to flourish and thrive with this international outlook. It is a center of culture, of finance, of course, as well, which attracts many people from all over the world. Here in Berlin, we have 4 million inhabitants, and we keep adding to this number, thousands of number. And I just wonder how London deals with this influx of people, because London is much more dynamic. There are many more people coming to London. And it's just remarkable that London has been this attractive hub, international hub, for so many centuries. And this makes London very special to me as well.
So if we had to nail it down to 3 words, would it be an attractive international hub? Is that how you would summarize London?
No, that's not enough. I think a world metropolis would be what I would settle for.
Perfect, and we will buy that very well. Thank you very much to both of you. This has been not only very interesting and insightful, but also a very positive outlook on the future of the 2 cities, but also the world, because obviously there's a huge impact that derives from this partnership. So thank you very much, not only for being here today, but also to continuously fostering these relations. I believe that they're absolutely crucial. At this point, we're going to have a 15-minute break in our program, and then at 10:45 or 9:45, depending on your time zone, the new British ambassador to Germany, Jill Gallard, is going to talk to you. In the meantime, thank you very much. Stay healthy, stay safe, and all the best. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.